Hello. Hello, and good morning to you all. Um, I just saw my son off. He was home for a week on leave, and now he is going back, sort of, not directly to work, just to see some other people before he goes back to work midweek. So that's why I have been noticeably absent the past week, and why I worked as hard as I did to get my book out before he came home, because I wanted to enjoy my time with him as much as possible. So now he is on to other places, and I wish him safe travels, obviously. So I am back to go over something that has been on my mind for a little while, and I just wanted to kind of address it. To my way of thinking, and obviously no one needs to agree with me, but as I do more study and do more writing and things like that, do the different topical studies and try to really study the eschatology part of the timeline of the Bible and everything, and what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen, what does the Bible say, all of that. It becomes very clear that one of the biggest issues that we have in Bible study, especially as we study the end times and trying to look at the Old Testament and the New Testament and put things in their proper places, is that people generalize what is meant to be specific. And that has deeper ramifications even in the study and application of the book of Revelation, because I'm sure that you guys are aware that there are a lot of different viewpoints about Revelation. Some people say it's already happened. Some say it's an allegory. It's not meant to be taken literally. It's meant to be figurative, or just to kind of teach a story or teach a truth. People's interpretations of these things change when you generalize what is meant to be specific. And so that is one of the things, one of the mindsets that I always go into my study with, is trying to figure out which is which. When we talk about, and this came up in a question, and it referred me back to a video that I had just recently done about the destruction of Damascus. Obviously, in the Middle East right now, there are a lot of wars and conflicts and things like that going on, that have been for many years by this point. And so people see the continuing destruction over there as a fulfillment, like a progressive fulfillment of this burden of Damascus from Isaiah 17. And that's not what that prophecy states. That is a specific point in time destruction. It will never be a city again when it is in finality destroyed. It's not a progressive thing that leads up to this event finding fulfillment. It is a point in time specific event that decimates the city and makes it a city no more forever. And there are, like I said in that video, there are other cities that are mentioned that this happens to. It is a broad reference made in Revelation, a broad point in time reference made to all of these cities finding their final destructions. And the book of Jeremiah, the book of Isaiah, the book of Zephaniah, the book of Amos all talk about these things in conjunction with one another. And they put these, just like Revelation does in Revelation 16, I think it's 17 and 18, right before, it's after the seventh vial is poured out and right before the destruction of Babylon. Those other Old Testament prophets, especially the book of Amos and especially the book of Zephaniah, point in time reference this to the day of the Lord's fierce anger, which is the day of the second coming. And I use that as a kind of just a touch point, because talking about Damascus, because I know that a lot of people know about that prophecy and see it as something that is being fulfilled, and it's not. It is a specific point in time reference to a final destruction that will occur part and parcel with the day of the Lord's fierce anger. And again, the Old Testament prophets, Amos, Zephaniah, Jeremiah. Jeremiah, from chapters 46 through 49, put all of these cities being destroyed, and then Babylon is chapters 50 and 51 in Jeremiah, which again link it directly to the book of Revelation. There are a lot of direct ties that the Old Testament outstanding prophecies have to the book of Revelation. And now that I am freed up to be able to do that, I will begin writing again. I still have to get through the 7 letters of the 7 churches first before I can actually start getting into the prophetic part of it. But Revelation is very specific point in time references back to Old Testament prophecies. And Matthew 24, to jump around to another thing that a lot of people are familiar with. And I'll go to Luke 21 also. Matthew 24 isn't a general, in the end of days, you'll see these type things. Matthew 24 is 70th week specific. It starts with the opening of the seals in Matthew 24:4. The Olivet Discourse is introduced in Matthew 24:3. And he sat upon the Mount of Olives. His disciples came to him privately, saying, "Tell us, when shall these things be? What shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world?" So clearly they're talking about the second coming. He's on earth the first time. They already know that he's going to come back. That's already been discussed. They're well aware of this. And they're saying, okay, so tell us what we can look to see that you are about to return. When you get into the end of Matthew 24, he gives the specific sign that everybody can look at and see his return is upon them. For as lightning cometh out of the east and shineth even unto the west, so also shall the coming of the Son of Man be. So that is the specific answer to the question that they just asked. Tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming? That's the sign of thy coming. And then of the end of the world. For wheresoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered together. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be dark, and the moon shall not give her light. The stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heaven shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. His lightning cometh from the east, and shineth even unto the west. So also shall the coming of the Son of Man be. And the tribes of the earth shall mourn, for they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. That is a specific answer to the question the disciples asked. Tell us, what shall the sign of thy coming, or what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world? He answers that in the chapter, discusses the second coming. But they said, tell us, when shall these things be? When shall what things be? The lead up to the event that they're asking about, the second coming. So what does he tell them? What signs can they look for to see that the coming of the Son of Man is near? They are 70th week specific. And this is the direct tie to Revelation. He says, and Jesus answered and said unto them, take heed that no man deceive you, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. John 5:43, I am come in my Father's name, ye receive me not. If another shall come in his own name, him ye will receive. Seal 1, Revelation 6:1 and 2. And then you have the other seal judgments listed in order. You shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye not be troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. Seal 2. For nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. There shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. Famine, seal 3. Pestilences, seal 4. Earthquakes in diverse places, seal 6. And what does he further tell them? All these are the beginning of sorrows. The 70th week has started. When you see these things, you know the 70th week has started. Well, what does Daniel tell us? What does Revelation tell us? There is a specific day count attached to the 70th week. So from the point that you see all of these beginning of sorrows start, opening of seals 1 through 6 in Revelation, Revelation says, what happens after seals 1 and 6 are open? The rich men, free men, poor men, bondmen hid themselves in the dens and the rocks and the mountains and said, fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of his wrath has come, the beginning of sorrows. And who shall be able to stand? There's a day count attached to it. 2,520 days later, what happens? For as lightning cometh out of the east and shineth even unto the west, so also shall the coming of the Son of Man be. For wheresoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered together. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, 2,520 days later, immediately after that, the sun shall be darkened, the moon shall not give her light, the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heaven shall be shaken. Then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. How do we further know that this is 70th week specific? Well, we keep reading. They shall deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall hate you, and shall kill you, and you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. Well, what did we learn about in Seal 5? That those who died for their faith, martyrs, were given white robes, and their souls were held under the altar, and they were told to wait a little season, rest a little season, until the full number of all that should be killed in that same manner shall be come in. From that point forward to the destruction of Babylon, where that is the avenging of the martyr blood. So all the way through 2,520 days. You're seeing that. Revelation 25:9. Then shall many be offended, shall betray one another, shall hate one another. Many false prophets shall arise and deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. That also goes back to an Old Testament prophecy, I believe specifically the book of Amos. I wrote about that when I was writing the judgment of the summer fruit. He that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved, which is not whoever makes it to the end of the tribulation. Obviously a remnant's going to be preserved, so that sort of applies a little bit, but that's not what that means. So just say that now. So now we get to the midpoint of the 70th week, when in Revelation 10:7, the sounding of the seventh trumpet was first introduced, and it says, and in the days of the voice of the seventh angel, when he shall begin to sound, the mystery of God shall be finished, as he had declared to his servants the prophets. What is the mystery of God? 2 Timothy 3:16, for with and without controversy, great is the mystery of godliness. God was manifest in the flesh, justified in the spirit, seen of angels, preached unto the Gentiles, believed on in the world, received up into glory. That is the finishing of the mystery, the revelation of this mystery worldwide. Fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment has come, and worship him that made heaven, the earth, the sea, and the fountains of waters. Revelation 14:6 and 7, the first angel flying through the midst of the heaven. In the days of the voice of the voice of the seventh angel, when he shall begin to sound. So this is tied to the midpoint of the week, the sounding of the seventh trumpet judgment. It is the worldwide revelation of the mystery of God, which is the gospel message. The angel preaches it, and Revelation 12:1-5 reveal it visually, point by point. Again, 2 Timothy 3:16, God was manifest in the flesh, justified in the spirit, seen of angels, preached unto the Gentiles, believed on in the world, received up into glory. And point by point, Revelation 12:1-5, go through each of those. That is the revelation of the mystery of God, the preaching of the gospel, audially, and visually. I know that's not a word. Don't worry. Worldwide at the midpoint of the week. And this is point in time referenced in Matthew 24:14. The gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world as a witness to all nations, and then the end shall come. What is the end classified by? What does Daniel tell us also happens in the midpoint of the week? So we know the seventh angel, the seventh trumpet is sounded in the middle of the week. What does Daniel say is going to happen in the midst of the week? In the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations, he shall make it desolate. What is the abomination of desolation? The revelation of the man of sin, the son of perdition, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God and is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, midpoint of the week. Whosoever readeth, let him understand. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house. Neither let them which is in the field return back to take his clothes. And woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. And pray ye that your flight not be in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day. For then shall be great tribulation, as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no nor shall ever be. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. The elect's sake, the shortening of the time in Jerusalem, shortened by the flight out of Jerusalem, because of what's going to happen after that. That is also spoken of in Revelation 12. the wings of a great eagle to give her flight into the wilderness where she is nourished for a time, times, and half a time. What do those time, times, and half a time correspond to? Well, let's go back to Daniel. Daniel 12 specifically, because this is another point in time reference to Revelation 12 and the events of the war in heaven that sees Satan permanently removed from the second heaven, not the third heaven. He's already been kicked out of there. This is the second heaven. Michael shall stand up. Michael and his angels warred against the devil and his angels, and there was no place found for the devil and his angels anymore. Again, point in time reference from Matthew 24, for then shall be great tribulation, as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor shall ever be. What does Daniel 12 say? And at that time, Michael shall stand up. War in heaven. Midpoint of the week, seventh trumpet. The great prince which standeth for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as was never since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved, but for the elect's sake those days shall be shortened. And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place where she is nourished for a time, times, and half a time from the face of the serpent. The serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood, which the dragon cast out of her mouth. Why? For the elect's sake those days shall be shortened. The dragon was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. If a remnant had not been preserved or isn't preserved by God supernaturally, they will all be killed. So we continue on in Matthew 24. Then if any man shall say unto you, Lo, here is Christ, or there, believe it not. These are direct references to Revelation 13, the revelation of the beast and the false prophet. For there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. Again, this is specifically tying to Revelation 13. Behold, I have told you before. Wherefore, if they shall say unto you, Behold, he is in the desert, go not forth. Behold, he is in the secret chambers, believe it not. Why? How do we know that what they are saying and doing is false? Because he specifically says, this is what my coming is going to look like. For as lightning cometh out of the east and shineth even unto the west, so also shall the coming of the Son of Man be. So if it's anything other than that, it's a lie. It's a lie. And then he goes into the day of his second coming. This is the problem with trying to make Matthew 24 about the church or about the rapture or about anything other than the specific 70th week of Daniel. This is, in my opinion, the biggest disservice that we do to the study of eschatology and Bible prophecy and trying to figure out the how and the what and the why is to generalize what is meant to be specific and to take it out of its proper context. When we start applying things in Matthew 24 to the church or to the present dispensation or to the rapture, it loses its meaning. I mean, it doesn't, because it still means the same thing. But then people run wild with it and they get things all wrong and they keep saying, well, prophecy is being fulfilled before our eyes. No, it's actually not. The best thing I can say about that is when you go to the epistles in the New Testament that were written by Paul to the church intended for the present dispensation, to help edify and to help teach and to help them understand what will be in store for us in the age to come, the end of the present dispensation, talking about the rapture, and then the Bema, the judgment seat of Christ, like all of that stuff that applies to the church, you'll find in Romans through Philemon. So maybe in some of these general epistles, say, I don't mean general, I'm sorry. Say 1 Timothy. This isn't meant to be specific. This is meant to be general. because this is something that will happen over the course of a whole period of time. When we go to the book of 1 John, he says, little children, these are the last times. Like ever since Christ came the first time and ascended, we're in the last days. It's been the last days for a long time, but this is specifically called in the last times. That's the period of time that we're in is the last days. So say 1 Timothy 4:1, now the Spirit speaketh expressly that in the latter times, we're in the last times. I'm going to find that verse real quick just so you don't have to take my word for it. Where does it say? These are the last times. I should look that up instead of trying to search for it. Last days. Yeah. 1 John calls them something. Maybe I'll find it later. Anyway, to not move too much from my point, when you're talking about Romans through Philemon and the things that are meant to be general as they are applying to the whole of the times that we live in and not specifically a point in time reference, you can look to things like 1 Timothy 4:1. Now the Spirit speaketh expressly that in the latter time some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils, speaking lies and hypocrisy, having their conscience seared with a hot iron. And this goes to the things that they'll teach, which are not Bible-based, because it wasn't 2 Timothy 3:16, it was 1 Timothy 3:16, talking about the mystery of godliness. So he outlines what that is in the previous chapter. So this is what people should be teaching. And obviously they're going to depart from that into these other wickedly false doctrines and things like that, and people are going to be led away. That's not a point in time reference. That is something that will occur during the whole of these last days. If thou put the brethren in remembrance of these things, thou shalt be a good minister in Jesus Christ, nourished up in the words of faith and of good doctrine whereunto thou hast attained. Refuse profane and old wives' fables, and exercise thyself rather unto godliness. What is godliness? Is the gospel message. God was manifest in the flesh, justified in the spirit, seen of angels, preached unto the Gentiles, believed on in the world, received up into glory. These are the components of the gospel message that should be taught. And if people are not teaching them, then there's an issue. So he says, refuse the things that are not sound doctrine. Don't teach them, don't entertain them. Exercise thyself rather unto godliness. For bodily exercise profiteth little, but godliness is profitable unto all things, having promise of the life that now is and of that which is to come. Let's see. What other things? There are a lot of other things. I mean, like Ephesians tells people, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places, telling us to take the armor of God unto ourselves. So naturally, there are general things that are going to happen that we need to be aware of, we need to guard against. Ways of living, things to look forward to. And these things that we look forward to are specific point in time references, like the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel, with the trump of God. The dead in Christ shall rise first, and we which are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and so shall we ever be with the Lord. That's a specific point in time reference. it's not an ongoing thing. It's not like people are going to rise over the course of time and ascend and meet Jesus face to face over the course of time. That is a point in time specific reference. So then why would Matthew 24 not be specific point in time references? One of the biggest services that we can do for ourselves is to keep the general general and keep the specific specific. Not everything must apply to us. Not everything does apply to us. Not everything should apply to us. We don't need to have the fear of missing out. We're not going to be left out. We don't need to include ourselves where we are not meant to be included. It totally destroys the integrity of Bible study when we insert ourselves in scriptures and in situations and in places and in time periods that we do not belong in. When the plain text makes perfect sense, seek no other sense. So hopefully that made sense. But just something to keep in mind, that if we're going to study the Bible, we need to make sure that our context is accurate. And one of the biggest ways and best ways that we can do that is to not mix the general and the specific up. Have a great day, guys. If you have questions, comments, or feedback, please leave it. And I will begin in the near future working again on my Bible study of the book of Revelation. Take care.